Welcome to NAB New York. Thank you for coming today. I'm Chris Ziemer. I'm on the Business Development and Strategy team at AWS for Media, Entertainment, Games, and Sports. I'm joined with Ira Rubenstein, Chief Digital and Marketing Officer at PBS. Did I get that right, Ira? And we're going to talk today about how PBS is unlocking value in video search and recommendations using generative AI on AWS. So, Ira, I think just to start, we hear a lot about PBS in the press and the news today. Can you just give us a little bit on the state of the state and what's going on over there?
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. So right now, there's just a lot of news about public media, and people often ask me, what is actually going on? And I just want to let everyone know that we are still here. We were defunded, but as we say, we're not defeated. And what has happened is that the government allocation to Corporation of Public Broadcasting, who in turn gave money to local stations, that money was rescinded. And so instead of local stations getting their money right about now, they're getting nothing. So the impact depends on your local station where you live. Here in New York, I would say it's about 10% of their budget. If you were from Cooksville, Tennessee, I'd say it was probably about 50% of your budget. So rural America, you're probably hearing a lot about that. Those stations are under a lot of stress right now. But as a system, we've been reducing costs. We've been looking to save costs, leveraging AI and other tools with AWS. And we're still continuing. And there's been an outpouring of support from viewers like you, which we appreciate. And that's definitely helping the local stations. So we're still here. We're not going anywhere. Corporation of Public Broadcasting is going away, which is because they were directly funded. And most of your stations, I would say, are all going to be here too. But they are going to need more support.
Thanks, Ira. Glad to hear you're still standing as a longtime supporter, and I can only imagine the pinch this is putting on technology spend and the need to be much more thoughtful and diligent about cost-benefit ratio and things like that. So I'd love to talk more about that as we go. But first, you're leveraging generative AI in service of creating content recommendations for a better user experience in search and discovery. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Just give us a quick overview of the project and, kind of.
Sure. So we've been on AWS since about 2009. We do all of our streaming on AWS. I often say we're the biggest digital secret out there. We're due about 400 to 500 million streams a month. We're also doing live linear streaming, all on the AWS Elemental boxes. Local stations, their local stream, plus additional multicast streams as well. And about 2 years ago or so, we built out a recommendation engine on AWS Bedrock. And that recommendation engine would recommend based on your viewing and based on the metadata in the content files what to recommend. And what we did at our innovation team was they looked at how Gen AI could augment the metadata so that we could improve the results of the recommendation engine. And so in public media, we're dealing with, over 700,000 files because you have the national programming content, probably content like Ken Burns, Masterpiece, All Creatures Great and Small, but you also might have a local show. And again, depending on what market you're in, there's other local content. And then stations also will go acquire other local content. And so all that is getting fed into the PBS platform, and each station and their local, they're putting in their own metadata tag. So there's no kind of real standard going on. So what we did was using Gen AI Bedrock with Claude, the team was able to go through using the transcripts that we already had on the file and apply a bunch of metadata tags about mood, atmosphere, history, more than just let me pick on, I'll pick on Ken Burns. So let's say American Revolution coming in November. Make sure you tune in. More than just say, history of American Revolution. There'd be more behind it. It might be include the locations, Boston, Philly, other things, just to have that complete picture. And so, using the tool, we're able to upload all that in, upload all those metadata tags, then built that to feed the recommendation engine. So now when a local station's uploading anything, the engine is generating those tags and then making a better recommendation engine for you to find the content you want on the PBS app.
And how does that present itself in the user experience? Is this a kind of net new carousel, or is it a recommendation after a program?
So what we're seeing is we continue to see higher engagement and more streams per user. And we believe that is coming from the recommendation engine because people are more easily be able to find content that they're going to want to watch. I'm sure you all stream. I'm sure you go to that homepage, you're trying to figure out what you're going to watch. And so what we're trying to do is get front and center of all the different content, especially a place like PBS or your local station. We have such a wide variety from news and public affairs to arts to science. And so to get the right content in front of you at the right time, that's when it's showing up. And it's showing up in our engagement numbers going up.
Got it. So the kind of KPIs and measures for success is mostly hinged on engagement. Tell me a little bit about that. How do you measure success of this platform?
So we measure success. Being public media, we definitely want to get more streams out there. So we measure success based on number of streams. We measure success based on the number of individual users, streams per user. We also have a product on the PBS app. It's called Passport. If you are a member of your local station, you get access to the library of public media content. So what we're also looking at is how many of our Passport members are staying engaged, how often they're coming back, how often are they watching additional content, and just kind of checking all those sort of measurements.
That's great. Thank you. So I think, there's kind of conventional wisdom that says to get good at personalization and recommendation, you have to get good at first-party data collection and build a strong identity graph and the rest, right? At PBS, you're obviously going to be very cognizant and cautious of privacy. There's GRDP and privacy regulations and consumer trust. How do you manage that, right? How do you give the consumer what they want without, infringing on privacy?
Yeah, so trust is very important for PBS. We consistently rank the highest in trust across all media companies. And so when it comes to individual user personal identity, we don't track any of that. So all we're looking at is the person and what they're watching, and then trying to give other content like that to them. So we're trying to make the experience better for them. Of course, you can opt out. We have all those sort of things, but we're not selling it to anyone. We're not sharing with anyone. And we're certainly not tracking you across the net.
Yeah. And generative AI is enabling this in a much, greater fashion because of its ability to analyze for mood and sentiment and, genre-based recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, the Gen AI in this case with the recommendation engine, going through 700,000 assets, that would have been literally impossible to do at a human level with all the different fields we were filling out. And so by using the Gen AI agent, that is all now automated, and the cost is, a few pennies per asset. So it's brought down a lot of costs that you would otherwise have to occur to have a state-of-the-art recommendation engine, because we're competing with every other streamer out there at a fraction of the budget. And so we have to be creative, and we have to be looking at new tools to enable this kind of level of consumer expectation when they start a video streaming app.
Let's talk about the fact that you have automatically tagged 700,000 plus assets. I mean, I can't even imagine a manual effort to undertake that. It would have taken 19 years or something, right? End to end, how long did it take to stand this up and put it into service?
So we're fortunate at PBS. We have a innovation team led by Mikey. He's in the back. So Mikey does rapid prototyping on lots of these different kinds of tools. And in this case, we were working with the AWS AI Innovation Lab.
Gen AI Innovation
Lab. We're very fortunate to work with them. We actually have a few more projects going on right now with them that we're super excited about, and definitely appreciate the support. And so Mikey, I believe, I'm going to be looking at him, but I believe he was able to spin up the prototype within a month. And then there was like a month or so of fine tuning, where they were loading in and then having a human check the results before they kind of rolled everything else in. And then it was like another month or two to actually get it integrated into the recommendation engine. So 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And then that's incredible. Let's talk about the human in the loop. That's a great point. Was there, kind of a more human oversight of the recommendations at first? And is it deprecating over time, or like what's the human dependency on this?
So the human in the loop in the beginning was really just the fine tuning and looking at the results of as they were checking different types and different forms of content. I think, now, I'm going to now have to guess. I'm going to look at Mikey. I don't believe we have as much human in the loop as much as we're probably periodically checking. There we go. But the beginning part, as you're building the engine and as you're fine tuning it, that's where much more the human hand on the wheel.
Got it. Any obstacles? Any bumps in the road?
Gosh, I think the biggest obstacle we always have is just resources. It's like I said, we're very fortunate to have an innovation team. What that enables us to do is have a team that's looking at new tools, new technology, new platforms without having your core team be distracted. And so what has to happen is if we get to a point where we believe we can productize something out of the innovation team, then we have to work it into the timeline and the resources of the regular team. So I would say that's probably the biggest bump in the road, but I don't think it's just more of a timing thing. But, in terms of developing it and everything else, I know the team worked very closely with AWS. And again, it happened so fast that I don't think there were any bumps at all.
That's great. So, we talked about, the increasing pressure on funding and the need to be, so much more thoughtful about technology decisions and building the most efficient and, cost-effective platforms possible. How do you think about that in this kind of context? What kind of cost-benefit ratio considerations did you bring to, analysis to decide if this was a good idea?
So I'm always focused on the consumer and the consumer experience. And what I always tell the team that if we don't have a first-rate consumer experience in today's crowded media landscape, the consumer is going to go someplace else. And so for this specific project, this is all focused on the consumer. This is all focused on giving them a much better experience. I think what we're always looking at beyond that is we're always looking at cost. But I'll tell one experiment, Mikey, you might get mad at me, but I came out of one conference and I asked Mikey to build me a live linear a Gen AI powered stream. And he did it, and it was on Bedrock. I remember that. And maybe now with this recommendation, we can do it more. But it ended up really not being consumer friendly. So we didn't move forward with it. And it just wasn't quite ready. But the idea and the concept was, what if you opened up the app and you got the stream that you wanted live? And it's kind of like, think of like a playlist on steroids almost. But if you're going to tune on at 8 o'clock and we know you want to watch NewsHour first, or you're going to tune on at 8 o'clock and we know you like to watch Masterpiece, be able to bring that in a live linear format. So I want to say not all the ideas make it, but it's always just trying to figure out how we can have that compelling experience, because we are dealing in such a crowded landscape, and to get people to keep coming back to our app so they can get the content from PBS and their local station. That's what we're always focused on.
Okay, I have to say, I love the idea of an automatic live linear content experience, right? You turn on personalized. Yes. Yeah. I think we should build it. I think we should revisit it, Mike.
I'm all for it.
It brings up another point that, we hadn't talked about earlier. The migration of audience from linear, to digital platforms, right? And content recommendations. And, this, of course, is going to span, across a platform. But what are some other considerations you're making in terms of technology decisions, Gen AI or otherwise, just out of curiosity, when we look at this need to keep audience aggregated, yet they are migrating to disparate platforms?
So, gosh, there's lots of things we're thinking about. I'm very much focused on discovery. I'm very much focused on discovery of content. And I really believe that what we're doing now in the metadata is going to help us in the future as the TV home screen becomes smarter. And as the TV home screen becomes the place where you start before you even get to an app, how can I make sure public media content can get to that recommendation engine and get front and center before you even get to our app? So I'm trying to, lift it up front and center. There's a reason why, other companies are aggregating their apps into one. Disney, Hulu, ESPN. They're trying to aggregate eyeballs. They're trying to get you to open that app. And so what we need to do is we want to make sure also that you're coming to our app first. We have the live linear streaming. We recently added the kids live linear stream to that. We've, some other international news channels as well. And of course, all the content on demand. But the question really, in my mind, is as AI comes to that TV home screen, and whether it's the Amazon Fire TV home screen, I'm sure they'll be working on that. Google, obviously with Gemini on that homepage, it's all going to come down to data. And so this is really bedrock to that future where content discovery is really going to happen on those TV platforms.
Yeah, that's a great, I feel exactly the same way. I think maybe the most powerful use of generative AI in our media and entertainment landscape is the ability to purpose your content and your intellectual property for consumption in a meaningful and engaging way, across all of these different platforms. But let's talk about data for a second. And, I agree kind of the data estate, is really the key to all of this. What was the state of your data foundations going into this? Did you have to do any other work to massage it and groom it and to serve this engine, or?
We were in a pretty good spot because, as I mentioned, we were already on Bedrock. Again, given our resource constraints, we've been very fortunate. We've had a lot of foundational support to do a lot of data work to help stations at scale get information about their viewers. Where we don't have a lot of data work at PBS is into the membership giving level, because that's all housed at a local station. What I would hope to get to someday is through data clean rooms and data lakes, figure out ways that we can help local stations tie in their giving data with the viewing data and then personalize messages and asking for support based on the consumer's viewing pattern, donation history, and tendency to give. And I think that would be a very powerful combination someday. But as you said, it all comes down to data. The good thing is it's getting easier. It's very easy to do on the AWS platforms. And I think the tools with Gen AI and how AI is incorporating, pulling those sort of things together, I think we're very close to that.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. You brought up the clean room, as much as, there's so much in the evolving privacy regulations and the loss of fidelity in the identifiers in the first place. At the same time, advancements in things like clean room and differential privacy technologies and the ability to form these data collaborations a very privacy compliant way has really opened up a new horizon of engagement possibilities. That's great.
Yeah, it's really tricky in public media. Our licensees are either state governments, state of Kentucky, for example, university licensees, PBS San Diego is an example, school district, Las Vegas PBS, or a public community license like here in New York, 13 PBS. So you can imagine universities, states, they all have different regulations around privacy, and we respect all of that. But at the same time, I want to figure out ways that stations can be smarter about understanding who their supporters are, how they can hyper serve those supporters, and how they can get more financial support, especially in this environment where we have less public support.
Absolutely. So what's next on the generative AI horizon for you? What's on Mikey's wish list?
So he just told me too. I know. Oh, wait a minute. Now that's blanking out of my mind now. I know, Mikey. We are looking at some tools in our creative shop. I know we're looking at in the marketing side of things. I know we're also looking at. There's two other projects with the Innovation Lab. Mikey, I can't hear him. Yell it to me, Mikey, because I can't hear. Oh, that's right. Thank you. So working with the PBS Kids team and tagging there, PBS Learning Media, which is a platform that supports over 1 million teachers in America, with all of our content and lesson plans, and figuring out how to, again, improve that content and that content discovery. And then the code platform, which he's super excited about, which is how to help our coders do more coding more efficiently, reduce our costs, which hopefully will then speed up our production timelines.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great. So what advice can you give to other media organizations who want to undertake this journey?
Well, first and foremost, if you're not in the AI arena, you should be in right now. The other advice I always give media companies where I've spent my career and I've been fortunate to have is have that innovation team. In my career previously, I've always had a very small innovation team. And again, very fortunate that PBS, that we have a grant to fund this team. But that allows you to experiment and try things without distracting your core team. And finding someone who can just rapidly prototype and rapidly try things and take my emails and my calls and say, hey, did you see this? You think you can do this? And with a smile, always do it. And then when we actually get it to be a product, like in this case, it's a home run. And you see how that's how you can keep your team moving forward and innovating in an environment where you have to.
That's amazing. Unfortunately, I think we're out of time, but that was great. Thank you so much, Ira.
Thank you for having me.